That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today. And we will leave you with I can't do it. We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it, and we'll do it live. And thing sucks.
In 5, 4, 3.
Welcome to the Building Men podcast. I'm your host, Dennis Morolda. Hey-o!
Hey-o!
I like that we're doing the hey-o now.
I know. I thought you were going to mix it up every time.
I was. Well, hey now.
Hey now. Hey now. Hey now.
Or, what's up, brother?
Yeah.
Should do like a Randy Macho Man Savage.
There you go. What's up, brother? You got it.
Building men, become the strongest version of yourself mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. So my name is Dennis Morolda, host of Building Men. I'm joined by my co-host. Should I call you co-host?
Co-host.
Crotch-a-dile. What do you want me to call you today?
The croc.
The croc.
The croc.
The crotch-a-dile. Crocodile.
The crotch-a-dile. I like that.
So you got what is that? A bucket hat.
Bucket hat, some shades. Once again, no pants.
Yeah.
Because that's important. So just...
Well, it's a skin tone thing you got going on. It's very distracting to me right now.
I know. So no, I have shorts on, but they just keep riding up. And I notice you keep veering your eyes down in that way. You probably need the sunglasses. Listen, it's fine. I'm happy that,
That threw me a little bit. I didn't know that you noticed me staring at your crotchal area.
And it just keeps making me happier and happier every time
I can tell. I'm watching it. You get happier as we're talking right now.
Oh, God.
So I was asked to not ask you to do an Australian accent.
If you're ever doubting who you think you really are, no, see, because I start going into
I feel like you need to go with a basic,
No, I'm not doing the shrimp on a Barbie thing.
Or the dingo. The
dingo ate your baby. Yeah, I don't like it.
Right.
I just don't feel confident about it. The outfit I feel confident in, but I don't feel confident. I feel like, I don't know. Here we have the illustrious lion, and if you notice, he's going after an elk that's wounded at this point. And he's looking to just pounce on this thing. And like I always say, Dennis, if you're gonna pounce, do it right. Do it when they're wounded. And
that's what you always say.
I've always said that.
You've always said this.
At least when I'm wearing this outfit.
Every time I've seen you wear that outfit, you've said that.
Yep.
So Building Men, here we are. This is our second studio.
Second studio. We still have the same mug, so I have a feeling people are going to be like, you were going to change your mugs every time, which I told you not to say that. We still have the same mugs because we forgot, but that's fine.
Order and chaos.
Order and chaos. This is a bit chaotic. We're gonna roll with it. Also, fun fact, I have actual water in this time. See?
I could hear it, as can the audience. A little gurgling going on there too.
I know, a little ASMR.
What does that mean? Can you tell me about that?
No, I can't. I have no idea what it means. Well, that's like the noises, like the sounds that people listen to. It gives them that feeling, that certain good feeling. I don't know. You've never heard of that before?
It's funny. I took the kids out for Sophia's birthday last night, and Jules was talking about it. She said ASMR.
Well, you could.
And I was like, "What is that?"
It's like
I'm not
talking and having noises or sounds that come up, and they I don't know. I'm gonna butcher it. I really don't know. But I've heard of it, and it's a thing with sounds. So maybe we'll have to look into that.
Yeah, we definitely will.
We can do the YouTubes.
All right.
Yeah.
So we're in our second studio appearance here. This is we're getting better at it already. I mean, I can tell I feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
As do you.
Definitely. Yeah. You're sitting up straighter, so he got scolded for slouching a little bit.
Yeah, listen, I needed to.
I know.
We started off the episode and I was straight,
yeah.
And I slowly slumped down as we went along.
Getting lower, and then we couldn't even see you. I like it because it makes me seem taller. I like that feeling of being better than you.
All right, Crotch-a-dile. So
yeah.
Today what we're going to weave our way into talking about is identity. And in a couple different ways. I'll start off with just a little bit of a deep philosophical dive into my experience as a middle school principal. Going through schooling to become a teacher and then to become a school leader, we had to do a lot of research on theorists. We had to do a lot on, Freud and Piaget and Howard Gardner, like people that had really interesting theories around how students learn and how people learn and how people develop, Maslow, and so there's a guy named Erik Erikson, and he's a developmental psychologist, and basically he has these ideas of how your personalities are developed. He has these theories of personality development, and there are these 8 stages of personality development. So what I was going to do is start with stage 5 with Erik Erikson. And the reason why I'm starting with stage 5 is it's where I spent my time. I spent my time as a middle school principal dealing with kids between the ages of 11 and 15, right? Mm-hmm. But also in this space in Building Men, this is where I'm seeing a lot of people get stuck. Yeah. This idea, this stage 5 of development as people are developing their personalities. And here's stage 5 of development, and I'll put in the show notes and in the link just the entire process of development and how people are developing their identity and their personality. And so stage 5 is fidelity, identity, and role confusion. And that typically happens during a person's adolescent years. So they say it happens between 12 and 18. That's that kind of order, that boxed in version of when he developed this theory, this is what he said. Yeah. And basically it's when people start questioning themselves. They question, who am I? Right. What am I about? Where is my space in society? Where do I fit in? What am I going to do with my life? They start kind of exploring their boundaries. And this is where, depending on the way that the parents are with the kids can really flourish and understand that they're able to go further than they thought they can go. They're able to test their boundaries in a deeper way. They're able to kind of explore where they're understanding what their capabilities are. Parents that lock a kid in and tamp them down and make them feel like, okay, I'm stuck in this situation. Kids get stuck in this spot where they're still, even in adulthood, trying to figure out who they are, where they fit in, what do they believe in, what is their part in society. Because
the parents decided what all of that was and didn't give them the freedom to kind of do as they please. It's like, have you read the book Grit by Angela Duckworth?
Yes, Grit is a great book.
And so she talks about this, right? She talks about who was the quarterback that she talks about. It was because she talks about 2 different parenting styles, right? And one gave them the freedom to do whatever the hell they wanted to do. They can go about
I want to say it was Todd Marinovich, who was a quarterback for the Raiders in the 90s. Is that who
I thought it was Montana. I thought it was talking
Joe
about
Montana?
Yeah, I thought she was talking about Joe Montana. It was someone more like that everyone would know. But she talks about how he had a very rigid, structured upbringing where it was basically everything was decided. You had to do this, and this. And, he had a great upbringing, like he had a great life and he loved his family, but then you have someone else, and I forget who this person was, but it was the complete polar opposite of that, where they just let him do whatever they want. They had the freedom to kind of do as they pleased and run around and figure it out for themselves. They both turned out okay, and she was trying to figure out why that was the case. You could have someone completely on opposite ends and why that ended up working for them in that sense. And, maybe it was because the love was there and they still gave them freedoms in certain areas of their life and structure in others. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but when you are, again, overbalanced on one thing versus the other, then I think that's going to cause resistance when you do that. Giving kids too much freedom, they don't know what the hell they're doing. Right. They got to learn from somebody versus telling them exactly what their life should be. They're going to push back when you do that.
And when kids are going through this identity development and they're trying to figure out who they are, if they're pushed to conform in a specific way, think about Dead Poet Society, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. In Dead Poet Society, there's this kid, Neil, who his father is, it's actually Red from That 70s Show is the dad. Yeah. I forget the actor's name, but he is a militant father, and he's pushing his son to, you need to do this, go to this school to be a doctor, and this is how it's going to work. And Neil is like, I want to act. I want to, I'm more creative in nature. But the father was like putting him in this box, like, you have to do this because I'm saying. And Neil wasn't able to develop this other side of himself. He winds up committing suicide. It's a tragic part in the movie.
Yeah.
And you're realizing that he's going through this identity crisis because he was made to conform in a certain way.
Right.
The last episode that we did, we talked about that balance between order and chaos. So I want to use that as a segue into this topic of identity. And as we're going through this developmental stage in our life where we're trying to figure out who we are, it's really important to be able to kind of test your boundaries and as parents, if you're a parent listening to this right now, to give your kids an opportunity to explore a little bit, to make some mistakes. I remember growing up, I felt really anxious to disappoint. It was a big part of who I was I didn't want to disappoint people.
Yeah.
I was a people pleaser for a long part of my life, and a lot of it was trying to figure out my identity. I felt like I needed to be a certain way, because that's what mom and dad expected me to do. I was an older sibling to you, to Tara, to Megan, so I felt like there was also this level of I needed to be a certain way, almost like a parent role in a way
like you had the pressure of being a parent and being that person who you not only needed to juggle all the things you had going on in your life as a teenager, but also looking after us and being a good role model, and setting the example. You were setting the stage, paving the path for us and showing us what to do. So you felt like you needed to make sure that you performed at all costs. And that's so much to take on. Yeah.
And with this, so that's Eric Erickson, this idea of the stage of development, this idea of fidelity, identity, and role confusion. So I want to use that as a backdrop. I'm going to bring in another theorist right now. His name is Henry Teifel. He has a thing called social identity theory. And basically in his theory, there are these 3 stages when you're thinking about. So the first part was how you identify with yourself, the internal identity that you're creating. There's a second part of identity too. It's this identity of how you fit into society and this mold of where you think things should be in society. So the first part of this social identity development or social identity theory is categorization. That's a tough word to say, believe it.
Categorization, yeah.
Categorization.
Like individualism.
You got it. You nailed it.
I got it.
So basically, it's as we're developing, we're growing up. First, we try to put things into categories. We try to put things into things that make sense in our brain. So you dump out the Legos on the table, and it's like, okay, let me put all the yellow Legos here, all the red Legos there. I'm going to put all the people here, and that makes sense. Okay, I'm going to put these things into categories. And as you get older, and you start to say, well, maybe I'm going to categorize them in a little bit of a different way. Maybe the Legos that have the 2 blocks are going to go here, and it doesn't matter what color they are, but these kind of fit into this thing together. So as you're growing, you start to develop, okay, I understand that things fit into categories, right? So that's this first part, is as we're developing like our social identity, is things start to fit into categories. Then we start to identify, okay, where do I fit into this? What group do I fit into? So you start to put things into categories. So it's like, okay, black and white, male and female, tall and short, high socioeconomic versus low socioeconomic, white collar, blue collar. So as you develop and you grow and you're starting to challenge these things in society, you start putting yourself into these different categories. That's the next stage. And then the final thing is social comparison. Is the box that I put myself into based on these categories where I want to be? Do I want to be in this box? Do I believe in what this box is that I just put myself into? And that's where you start to challenge all that shit that goes on there.
And this is like later, so this is going off of different like spots in your life, you're saying? Like you start out with this, then you go in this, you figure out that there's categories, then you figure out which one that you belong into, and then you figure out if you even want to be in that one. So that's like you challenging it and the resistance to it, and if you feel like it's right and that. So the first two are almost unavoidable in a sense. Is that how our mind kind of works and builds and grows as we go through it? It's very interesting.
Interesting, right?
Yeah.
So now with both of those things happening at the same time, so there's the internal identity that we're trying to create.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out who we are, our spot in the world, what do we believe in, where do we fit in. Are we tamped down as we're going through that, or are we able to figure it out? Are we able to explore and learn about it? And at the same time we're trying to figure ourselves out, we're also trying to figure out societal, where do we fit in? What are the categories? What does each category believe in, and where, what is each one about? And then where am I as a part of that or not a part of it?
Yeah.
And then it starts, okay, so say if I should fit into this specific category. I'm at the time, a husband, a father, I'm a principal, I live at this spot, I drive this car, and what if, as you put yourself into that box, it doesn't make sense to you anymore?
Yeah.
It's not who you are anymore. I don't believe that I should be married to this person anymore. I don't believe that I should be a principal anymore because it's not something that it's part of who I am anymore.
Yeah.
So now it's challenging when you feel like you should be in this box for your whole life that you're putting yourself in, and now it doesn't work. You go back to that spot where I talked about with Erickson, his identity, or that developmental identity that you're creating about yourself. Now you're back to that spot again, that adolescent spot. Okay, who am I? Where do I fit in? If I don't fit into this box, now
So
what?
now you got to backstep and figure out where that spot's going to be. And it's so interesting because who comes up with these identities? Who comes up with these? It's so many influences from outside powers, and some that we don't have any control over. So like, we don't know what group, like society just kind of tells us what the right and wrong thing to do, or what group you're in. And sometimes you're just put into these groups. And some people truly believe that that's the end all be all. This is the group that I'm in. This is what I was meant to do by their parents or by school or by, some other figure, someone else, or what the TV says. And it's such a shame because some people never look inward and figure out what they actually want or what their identity is. Because identity is like, it's so much more than just that. Just your job.
Yes.
Your, who you're with, the people you surround yourself with, the cars, the whatever materialistic items that you have. It's so much more than that. That's not what identity is. And that's the $1 million question. It's like, what is identity? How do you identify yourself? Because if something's expendable, then now what? And then your identity is lost. You lose that marriage, right? If you identified by that, now you're what? You're nothing. You're worthless because that was your identity.
Yes.
Like that. That's a sad world to live in.
So you brought up the idea of where does it come from and what is it about? Let's start with men. So now a lot of our audience, they're men that might be going through this identity crisis. A lot of the people that we talk to, that we work with, they're at that spot now where they see themselves in this social comparison spot. Maybe I don't believe that I belong in this spot where I am right now, or I want to strive for something better, or for something different, and they're questioning, okay, what am I here for? What is it about? Is this really what I want to do? What happens, I believe, with a lot of men is that we identify ourselves first and foremost by our profession. I did that for such a long time. There was this level of, I had a specific job that I felt carried a level of, I don't know, prestige to it, being a principal. And people would say, tell me about yourself. And my first thing would be, I'm a principal. I'm a middle school principal. Because I felt like, oh, this shows who I am. Then your identity, is based on a relationship that you have. And then maybe you base your identity as well on status things. It could be materialistic type things. The car that you drive, the house that you live in, where you're going on vacation, I don't know, what you're wearing, your bucket hat and sunglasses.
Right. It's very important.
But your identity is changing every single time we're together. You've done a lot of different outfits and get-ups that it's not a static thing for you.
No, and that's what's beautiful about it. I have no idea what the hell my identity is.
No one knows.
Nobody. We're still figuring it out together.
So what do you think about that idea? Men especially will identify themselves initially with their profession.
I don't think there's anything wrong with, maybe not, I guess identify is the wrong word, because you don't want to identify by something that can change, right? And something that's going to. So like identify with your purpose, like identify with your mission, identify with what you're after. Like, so if someone asks me my job is to contribute and help people, right? That's what my profession is, because I'll do that for the rest of my life. That no matter where I'm at in my life, no matter what job I have, I'll always be doing that. be a cashier somewhere, and my job is to make sure that everyone gets checked out, and then I can, everything runs smoothly. And that's me helping. I'm contributing to society, and that's my purpose, and I identify by that. And it's we look at if our identity is it'll always come back to that, right? If your sole goal with your profession is to retire, how many margaritas can you drink before you want to go back and do something?
Yes.
And that's why the purpose of the whole thing, and figuring out what are you meant here to, what are you on this planet for? What do you believe that is? And the way I could look at it is if money wasn't an object, if money didn't matter at all, what would you do? What would you do with your life if you were financially stable, you had everything that you needed? What would you do? And then you look at if you couldn't fail, what would you do? Where would you go in life? If there was no chance of failure, what would you do? And I feel the more people that ask themselves that question, the better you'll be, and the more you'll understand about yourself. You learn a lot about you and who you are at your core when you could answer those confidently. And I guarantee you not many people can answer those. And it's a scary realization, or it's something that maybe is completely opposite of what you're doing. And I think you need to start stepping back a little bit, because that's such an important part. Or even if you have your job, doing something on the side that's a hobby that goes towards your purpose in life, that maybe isn't as lucrative right now.
You asked the question, if money was not an object, what would you be doing? And if there was no chance of failing, what would you be doing? And it made me, it was a moment that I had to reflect. I would be here right now.
I'd be fucking doing this, brother. Let's go.
Let's go. All right.
I'm exactly where I want to be. This is exactly, I need to take a drink of it. I just picked it up. I have to. Oh, okay.
Wet my whistle.
Mm-hmm.
I would be right here right now. If money was not an object, if there was no opportunity for failure, I'd be sitting here right now talking with you for the Building Men podcast. And it's such a great point that you just made, and I don't want to gloss over the fact that you said there is a part where people will ask you what your job is, what is your career. But there's a difference when if I were to say, if someone would say, what do you do? I help people. I want to help people become the best versions of themselves. I want to help someone else breathe easier because I was here on this planet. Mm-hmm. Not I was a principal. I was a school leader. I was here to help other people become better, to do whatever I could do to help another human being in whatever capacity I could. So if that's part of your identity, you lose your job and you're not making the same amount of money, you can still be that. You can still be that person. It doesn't have to be tied to a career.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big part of it is, how do we identify ourselves? Is it based on the paycheck that we're getting, or what we are actually about, what we're doing? So that's one big part of it. The second thing is, I think as we go through high school, and then maybe we go to college, or we start our careers, and then we get into relationships, I think part of our identity gets lost during that process. And I will speak from my own experience. I feel like I lost a lot of my identity during the time that I was married. You hear the saying all the time, happy wife, happy life. Happy wife, happy life. I've heard that so many times. Mm-hmm. And I wholeheartedly disagree with that statement. It's basically saying that your identity is based on, and your ability to find happiness in life is based on your perception of your significant other's happiness. Mm-hmm. And it's taking total power away from you as a human being and putting it in someone else's happiness that you may or may not have any control over whatsoever.
Yeah, it's the idea of codependency, where I'm dependent on you for my own happiness, versus interdependency, which is my happiness and your happiness, and we're together and we can be happy. But I don't depend on you for my happiness. I don't depend on anyone. It's nice to hear certain things from people, but that's the biggest difference. Is not just if I just make you happy, that means I'm going to be happy because you're happy. No, that's not how it works. So that would mean that if I had a great day and I went home and my wife had a bad day, that means I'm having a bad day. That means my day sucks. No, that's not how it works. And that's a terrible way to live.
Yes.
It's an unhealthy way to have a marriage or be in a relationship with someone.
And not only that, what you're doing is you're creating this unspoken agreement between two parties where my fulfillment and my happiness is based on your fulfillment and your happiness. That's so messed up on so many levels.
Yeah.
Because what it does is it creates this hierarchical relationship between two people where my happiness is based on your happiness. So if you're not happy, then I'm not happy, and there's a lot of pressure on that person. I wouldn't want to be put in a situation where someone else's happiness is based on my happiness.
Yeah.
That's horrible to set something
to put all of that on that one person. Like, in order for me to be happy, you need to be in a really good mood all the time.
It sets up this like tyrannical versus servant attitude or relationship.
And you're doing your whole freaking monkey dance the whole time, making sure that they're happy. All the while, who are you? You know, you're just your wife. You're whatever your wife wants you to be.
Or whoever
yes,
you're with.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever, your partner, it doesn't make a difference. But just like whoever that person is in your life, you're solely after them being happy, and that means you're happy. And then that leads you to, you lose that person, now you'll never have joy in your life again.
Then you're in this chaotic spot that you need to rebuild.
And a lot of times people set themselves up for that over chaotic space, you know, because they just put all of their chips in one, or they put all their eggs in one basket, and then they just set themselves up for failure after. Because how are you supposed to come back with that when everything is dependent on one other person that you can't control? You can't control anybody. You can only control yourself, right? It's amazing way to look at it, and I think a lot of people get caught in that vortex of that.
And if that's what it's about, and your relationship is based on someone else's happiness, and then that relationship is not there anymore, you just mentioned how you find yourself in this spot. Where am I? Who am I? How did I get into this spot? And then it takes a whole lot to get back out of it. The other thing is you don't want to have that someone else have that total power and control over you and what your identity is. Back to the idea of Erickson and how your identity develops. Fidelity, identity, and role confusion. Now we're people that have gone through their life and they're in this spot where they have their career, they're with a significant other, maybe they have some kids, but they based their value, their worth, their happiness on someone else's. Now it's all the way back to that stage 5 of development where it's that adolescent mind frame. And I've seen so many people are stuck in that adolescent mind frame right now. Maybe they're not even in a relationship. Maybe they're just, people in their late 20s, early 30s living at home, not understanding what their role is in society. Yeah. But we need to be able to break out of that and understand the best way for a relationship to work, in my experience, especially, over the last, however many months that I've been in a really strong, positive relationship. The way that the relationship works is that you both need to be the best versions of you. Mm-hmm. You help each other become the best versions of you, but me being the best version of me is not dependent on you wanting me to do that. Like it needs to be like, I need to be the best version of me and support you being the best version of you, but I can't be like, well, I'm only going to be the best Dennis if Anthony's the best, or if he believes in me in that certain way. We need to have that agreement. Like, we're going to be strong for each other, and when we're both strong for each other, we're the best for each other.
Then we can be together and make this collectively work, and it doesn't have to just be, one person depending on the other person when they do that. And that makes so much sense to me. And it's just amazing how we get into these, we go on one end where you go and you put yourself all the way into a relationship, and then you end up, it's just the balance between the two, it just ends up coming back to balance every single time. So,
and there are also the people that base their identity on extrinsic things. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's the car that you drive, maybe it's the house that you live in, maybe it's the different things that are tangible in nature. So if your identity is based on things like that can potentially be taken away from you, that can be stolen, burned, like whatever, if it's something that is tangible and that's who you are, it's another horrible way to live. It can't be something that it can be taken away. I've talked many times on the podcast about the ideas of false masculinity, and so we'll wrap it back into masculinity. And the research that I've done and some of the books that I've read is that a lot of men initially base their worth and their value and their identity as a man, as far as masculine identity. Initially, it's about your athleticism. and how good you are at sports growing up, right? So you're a kid, and the kids that are the best, football players, basketball players, whatever sport that they're doing, you see them in an athletic way. They have a higher status or stature in society with the group of kids that they're with as young men. And then when you get into high school, it's more how attractive you are to the opposite sex. And you have this role of, if you're a player, if you're with a lot of girls, there's somewhat of a higher status for you in society, and you feel like that's more masculine. And then after that, it's okay, making the job with the most bank, driving the best car, living in the best house, up on the hill with a white picket fence. That becomes who you are as a man. And if you're basing your masculinity on those things, and you're basing your identity on those things, and they can all be taken away from you, where are you then?
Yeah, then who are you after that? It's all superficial, it's all hollow. It doesn't lead to happiness. I don't know one person who's had a one-night stand with someone and they woke up the next day and they were like, yes, God, that's great. Waking up to no one and nothing after, and just a story to tell your friends later on. Usually those people don't feel very good about themselves down the road. So you have to find what your true purpose is and what you're after. And again, it's funny because we have this moment, because like you were saying, when you're stuck, right? Or when you're certain in your 20s or 30s, because I just know from my experiences when we went in this lockdown and I wasn't allowed to do my job anymore, I had to look inward and figure out who I am as a man. What is my purpose here? Because I was getting I would just like you did, I'm a principal, right? I'm a strength and conditioning coach. That's who I am. That's what my job, and then that was taken from me. So now it's like, what am I? Why am I here? What am I doing? What is my sole purpose on this planet for? And I got in this really deep state of depression because I didn't know where the hell I wanted to go. And then it allowed me to sort of understand what I am outside of that. How, again, like my meaning here is and what I'm meant to do. And I think people need to take that time to just separate themselves from their job and the stuff that they have and really take a look at what they're doing and where they want to go in their life. And the other cool thing is, like, Joe Dispenza talks about this, and he talks about how the only way we identify ourselves is our stories that we tell ourselves before, right? So it's just our memories of ourself. That's who we are. That's the only way we can identify ourselves. So you have this moment when you wake up when you don't really remember who you are, and it's that amazing moment where you could be whoever the hell you want to be, right? If you woke up and you got hit in the head the night before and you didn't remember anything, and I told you were a millionaire, and you had this, you were this huge guy and you had all these followers and stuff, you'd be walking around like proud as all hell, confident, feeling like $1 million because all these people care about it just from what I told you, right? And what we do is we wake up and we look at our phones and we look at our emails and we look at our texts and we look at social media, and then it comes back to us immediately. This is who I am. Why? Why is that who you are? It doesn't have to be who you are. You decide whoever the hell you want to be. So if you can get out of that mindset of like, all these stories that other people have told me or that I've told myself is who I am, you'll have a lot easier time realizing who you can be and the future of you and what you're going after in life.
It's brilliant, and that's the thing. The stories that we tell ourselves determine who we are.
Yeah.
If we're listening to old stories in our head, or we're listening to what we think other people think of us, we're letting other people control those stories, we get stuck. We get stuck in that spot. My life changed in the last year and a half with COVID and quarantine. I had to reinvent myself because it made me challenge who I am. What am I about? What is my meaning on this planet? What do I want to do? What is my identity? There were so many things that I needed to challenge. It was the best thing that ever happened to me, believe it or not. I mean, it's horrible to say that the pandemic was the best thing that ever happened to me But here's the thing, it can be for anyone who's listening. You can take opportunities where the initial thing is that it's a negative, it's a bad thing. You could reframe that in your mind, and it's about the stories that you tell yourself. So now people that have this challenging spot, that are listening, when you think about how your identity fits in, one with the societal part of identity, that idea, the social identity theory, where you categorize and then you try to identify, okay, what does each one of these groups stand for, and then where do I fit in, that social comparison. And maybe you're fitting in exactly where you believe you should fit in, but if you're not, and you need to challenge that identity, okay, take a step back now. Start to think about, okay, what do I believe in? How does that fit in with where I am, what I'm doing in my life? And if it doesn't jive, what are you going to do about it? So how do you make those steps to move forward from that? And I believe you need to take like a real deep look inside, do a personal inventory on what is it about? If it's not about your job, if it's not about your relationship, how do you want to be remembered?
Yeah.
If you were to write your obituary, starting right now and then live out your life however you would, what would you say about yourself? What were you able to accomplish? What did you do to help other people? What goals did you set for yourself that you were able to accomplish? What's going to be perpetuated from your existence on this planet? Do that hard work. Look inside and figure out what are you about, and then what are you going to be remembered for moving forward. And it's not too late. I started this journey when I was 43 years old, right? And I did a 180 in where I was going and what I was about. And you mentioned, where would you want to be if money wasn't an object and there was no chance of failure? I'd be sitting right here. So it's not perfect. It's not exactly where it's going to be. We know what's in our future. But I was able to shift my identity because it wasn't based on my job, it wasn't based on a relationship, and it wasn't based on anything material. It was based on things that I needed to discover for myself.
Yeah. You figure it out along the way, and you have to be willing to have that scary question, because a lot of people are going to look at that and realize that they're not in the place that they want to be. And people might look at us and be like, well, I have to make money, I have to be financially stable, this job gives me that. I agree. But I think you also need to start taking the steps necessary outside of that. If you look at your day and figure out how many hours you have that are downtime, use that to do the things that you're passionate about. If you need that job to make money, we both have jobs on the side that we're doing. This is my main focus right now, and I'm doing that to make money until this allows me to take over, right? This allows me to be my main job that I'm doing. So you have to figure out ways to do that and start building today. Start doing little things that you can accomplish every single day, because that's where it starts. You can't keep talking about it and just assume like I can't, I have too much going on, I can't do it, and figure out who you are, your values, what your purpose is, what your mission is, what you want people to say about you, what you want your family to say about you, what you want to tell other people that you do, how you're providing for the world right now.
And if we can help you along in any capacity during your own personal journey, reach out to us. Let us know where you are along on this journey, if you need any assistance, if you need any advice, or if you want to just hear more about our own specific journeys. You can find us on Building Men, building.men on Instagram. Email us, buildingmencoach@gmail.com. Crotch-a-dile, Dundee, you got any final words?
Keep getting after it.
What do you always say about lions? And
that if now remember, if there's a lion, run the other way. If it's a deer and it's wounded, attack and don't ever look back.
There it is. We'll see you next time on Building Men.